GPI is bringing significant benefits to banks. Payments are faster and more traceable. Inquiries about tracking and non-receipt are dropping fast. But how is GPI working for the bank's customers, the corporates? Well, here to give us their perspective are Javier Orejas, who is head of banking at the EMEA and the Americas at the International Air Transport Association, Peter Claus-Landi, director of banking initiatives at GE Treasury, and Martin Schlageter, who's head of Treasury operations at Roche. Gentlemen, welcome to Sibos TV. And Martin, I'd like to start first with you. What are the main challenges from your perspective with cross-border payments for a company like Roche?
You know, for the last 2 years, I had to speak about those challenges, but now, since last week, it's reality. GPI is live, so now I have to consider the past mode. So I think, in the past, cross-border payments were extremely slow, completely intransparent. So this was like a black box for 2, 3, 4 days where you had no clue what is happening. If everything goes smooth, you can kind of live with this, but if a payment doesn't sort of end up with the beneficiary or fees are deducted, then a completely manual, cumbersome process starts, which can take weeks to clarify what had happened to a payment. And we're not talking about paying a burger through a payment system, but basically paying millions of funds through that system. So now with this, a lot of things have been addressed with GPI. We can see it now, it's live. But there's more to come also.
Okay, so life has improved, basically.
Already, yes.
Okay, then. And from your perspective, Javier, GPI was launched over a year ago. So how do you see the journey with your banks? And do you feel that your banks are already offering you this innovation? Because clearly there are benefits.
Yeah, we see that right now the banking industry is reacting positively. First of all, obviously, due to the benefits that SWIFT GPI will bring for the corporates, obviously we are demanding, we are pushing as well our banks, at least from IATA, to offer and to put this SWIFT GPI technology in their portfolio. So we see that there are more and more banks that obviously they are in the way just and trying to open new corridors, new currencies, which is as well very important for international corporates such IATA and Roche to have more currencies already open with this technology. And we see that the future is real, and there are more and more banks offering this kind of new technology.
And Peter, you work with multiple banks around the world. So how do they respond when you ask them for GPI services? And why is it important from your perspective that your banks are GPI enabled?
Yeah, so GE is a large multinational corporation. We operate in over 170 countries. So overall, the banks have been very receptive to GPI. And as part of the pilot, it's been a very collaborative effort from the start with them. So overall, I think the overall experience has been positive in that respect. GPI, we're actually looking to include that and rate our banks on that and score them in our bank scorecards as well. So it's a criteria that we use when we speak with them now to make sure that that's a service that they offer. So the more that they scale, the more data insights we'll start being able to receive and benefit from that going forward.
Martin and Peter, you're both working with SWIFT in their new corporate initiative. That's called G4C. So could both of you actually explain what this new initiative is?
Yeah, we were supporting 2 years ago, I remember, in summer, the large Swiss multinational corporates basically published an open letter to SWIFT, basically granting support to SWIFT and basically calling also the banks to action in this regard, because left and right you see fintechs looking into this topic, and with SWIFT for a long time, and the banks, nothing happened. So we said, listen, we need to team up, because in the end, if the banks improve their system, this doesn't incorporate the needs of the corporates as well. So we need, and this is what we have now developed in this pilot group, for example, in thorough discussions with 10 banks, 11 banks, and 11 corporates, to define the standards for the communication between the corporates and the banks, in order to get a full integrated system that allows us to also now issue our reference that we can basically track through the whole system, and when it comes back, we can do the reconciliation. So this was very necessary that we teamed up. Also, we sort of basically laid the ground for later for the software vendors, which can support other corporates in this regard. So without us being part of this group, I think this would have been difficult for GPI to get such attraction.
No, I agree 100%. I think it's truly been a collaborative effort between the corporates and the banks, right? And I think the goal for G4C overall is, as a corporate, we want to make sure that we integrate GPI into our own internal treasury processes. So being able to collaborate with the banks and formulate the idea of how we want GPI to work has definitely been a positive experience, and it's going to be very beneficial moving forward for us.
Because as I understand it, you're all participating in the pilot of this new initiative. So from your perspective, Javier, can you tell me about the journey?
The journey that we have followed obviously is important. Again, I will say that just putting banks and corporates at the same time in the same room to talk about the pain points that the corporates we face in our day-to-day it was historical. I mean, it's something which didn't happen before. Keep in mind that the banks that are working in this working group, usually they are competitors. So it's like the way the co-creation that we are developing, that we are following, the co-creation spirit that we are following in this initiative is, at the end of the day, is working. Let's say that is working together for mutual benefit, and then to hear banks directly from the corporate, the pain points, what are the things that we want or that we are expecting from a corporate point of view to be improved is something that is very useful as well from the banking industry and for the corporate as well, building and setting standards and just to create a solution with a unique experience which will be simple to implement from a corporate point of view is something that is work under this working group.
And Peter, what do you see as the value of a GPI tracker for corporates?
I think the value for corporates of a GPI tracker is huge for us, right? So today it's a black hole of payments, right? I think having a corporate GPI tracker is going to unlock the whole transaction life cycle for us, right? So provide more insights, whether it's where the transaction is, fees associated with that, et cetera. And it's not only going to be beneficial to corporates, it's also going to be beneficial to banks, right? Because you're going to reduce your exception handling. It's going to reduce the reliance of corporates having to go out to their banks to do payment traces to figure out where things are. So overall, I think it's going to be it'll be a great thing for us for the corporate tracker for sure.
And Javier, in terms of the G4C initiative, the actual pilot work, I mean, how does it operate? Because you've got to get all these different players coming together at a table, wherever. How do you do that? How do you get them singing from the same hymn sheet?
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned before, it's like an historical situation. It's a unique situation in which we are working together, banks and corporates under the same room, and just discussing the pain points that we are suffering in our day-to-day. I mean, it's working, as my colleague mentioned, is from a corporate point of view, especially in the cross-border transactions. There are some kind of pinpoints in terms of cost, in terms of traceability, in terms of reconciliation, exception handling. That at the end of the day is an important pain point for both, for corporates and for the banks. So it's like working together for mutual benefit.
And Martin, are there any results as yet from the pilot that you're in the position to share with us?
Yeah, I mean, this was for 2 years. This was concentrated work on this topic. So we made sure that basically for 95% of our transactions, I would say, we have the banks in the pilot group. So we made sure that our banks, which are sort of delivering these services to us, are interested in GPI and following us in that. And we had a lot of bilateral discussions during this pilot to make sure that when we can go live like last week, that the systems, that the banks, everything is coordinated. And now I can say, I mean, we know already that the speed of the payments has dramatically increased. We have a lot of transparency suddenly. So I think we have a very standardized process flow, inter-exchange. I mean, this is already a different world today. Still, and this is the fascinating thing, it's only the start. There's so much to come where we can now bank on. And I mean, the nice thing about SWIFT is really that you have this global reach. Immediately you basically make a change for large corporations, which normally it would take ages or years at least to have such benefits created within such a project. So this is the leverage that we see within this project is amazing, and the opportunities which are out there to come is also great.
So this is Martin's experience, and does that tally with yours, Javier?
Yeah, in our case, the benefits that is going to bring into the airline industry is huge. We have already, we have already implemented Swift GPI technology in some of our operations, and even it has been very useful in some situations, which again we are managing huge amount of money on behalf of the airlines. And there are some kind of queries that we are receiving in our day-to-day business, like for in some kind of cross-border transactions, the airlines are not receiving the funds and are contacting IATA just to identify where the funds are located. And at the time that we are providing this kind of the new tracking, the new UETR number, the payment tracking number, is like the first reaction from our members is like they are totally surprised, they are totally shocked that this technology is real already, and it's like again, it's like the future is something that we have already implemented in our operations. And honestly, the reaction from our members when we are sharing this kind of data on this kind of technology, they are totally surprised and shocked, and it's like we want to have this.
Everybody wants a piece of it. And look, Peter and Martin, probably a slightly unfair question, but from your perspective, what do you think is next for GPI? And are there other pain points in the cross-border payments journey that you feel G4C can address?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've been primarily focused for the first part of the pilot more on the buy side, right? So from a initiation payments perspective, I think there's definitely an opportunity moving forward, kind of on the sell side, and also looking for receivables, right? So if we can improve our receivables, optimize our liquidity management, I think there's also opportunity moving forward as we get more data insights into this. Can we take it a step forward? Can we say, now we have UETRs for transactions coming in. Can we query our collections account and say, what are all of the outstanding payments that are out there right now? What are all the funds that I'm expecting? When are they actually going to hit? Because that could ultimately improve our liquidity management as well.
Yeah, just to add, I think, the remittance question is a big one. How much data can you sort of send through the system so that the reconciliation can take place easier? Stop and recall, to have a standardized process. Today, this is a very manual, cumbersome process, different by bank, so this can also be standardized. So I think this is it's more a question of prioritizing the ideas than saying, listen, what could we do next? So I think this is also the good thing about this strong pilot group, which basically has a lot of ideas. You have the SWIFT team that coordinates this pilot working group, they basically have this huge list of things what to do. And then the fight starts, we actually do real voting and say, listen, what should get priority and what not. So long journey to come.
Exactly, but an exciting one nonetheless. Gentlemen, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.